I actually think this is a kind of hard first vocab question, especially because this is supposed to be the easy module. So you're supposed to have overall easy questions. It's one of these ones where we have to understand what the word means in the context, not just fill in the blank. And of course, it's a poem, so that's hard to understand, but let's read it. It is summer, glorious deep-toned summer, the very crown of nature's changing year, when all her surging life is at its full. To me alone, it is a time of pause, a void and silent space between two worlds, when inspiration lags and feeling sleeps, gathering strength for efforts yet to come. So dumb summary here, this is definitely negative. So we'd want some sort of negative word, but they mostly are, right? A useless, empty, forgotten, incomplete, right? These are all kind of negative words. So that doesn't really help. I hate that this is the way I'm answering this, but the strongest reason that I would pick the correct answer here, which is B, is that that's just what a void is. A void is an empty space, right? Like literally outer space we consider kind of like a void. There's a lot of nothingness. Occasionally there's a planet or a star, but like it's basically empty. Now the reason I don't like that is that most of the time this type of vocab question, you're getting a word that has multiple possible meanings. And then we're supposed to pick based on context what the most like accurate meaning is for that particular context, I guess. So you really shouldn't just be going by memory of the definition. But I guess the other ones don't really make a lot of sense here. Like useless is very, very negative and very strong. And so we're not talking about something's use or what it accomplishes. So I just don't see any other words that have to do with whether or not something is useful. So useless doesn't seem like a good fit here. What I do see though is that 2 lines above it says when all her surging life is at its full, right? So that's talking about summer being full, but for this author, it's a time of pause, and so a time of not being full, I guess. So that would be emptiness, right? So empty seems to fit there. Forgotten doesn't really have that same connotation, I guess. It also doesn't, again, kind of like the problem with useless, it doesn't really have there's no sense of memory, like thinking things remembered and things forgotten. So maybe that's another way to think of it is, yes, we know we need a negative word, but we also have this kind of contrast within the poem. And so maybe we're looking to say, okay, what is the positive word that goes with this negative? We're looking for the closest match possible. So full kind of is that. Incomplete, though, feels like also maybe it has something to do with emptiness. And I think that that's probably the most common wrong answer. That would be my guess. The reason it doesn't work, though, is kind of the same as the other two, is we're not really talking about completeness. It's not like something's missing. It's just that nothing is there, if that makes any sense, right? A void is emptiness. There's nothing there. Whereas if something's incomplete, it implies that something should be there and it's not, but we just don't really get that from the poem. I don't know what else to say here. I think this doesn't feel like a good, strong question because I really don't like that we really do need to just have a good memorization of the word. That's just not how these normally work. It's usually actually what leads us into traps. So I would say maybe let's just treat for now this question more as an exception and not really dwell on it too much. But it is a good reminder that like these ones where you've got to kind of match the word that's in there with some other definition, these can be a little tricky because the definitions will overlap in ways. So especially if you're not a native English speaker, those overlaps might be hard to really parse and understand. So just be patient, try to read as much as possible in English, newspapers, magazines, things like that. And hopefully you will build that understanding of the nuance of words that this kind of stuff will become easier.